Okay, hey, today I got a new VARA skin for my pontoon boat. It's a Sun Tracker 22-foot party barge. Going to be putting this VARA skin material underneath the bottom of the deck to have less resistance from air, wind, and water. So it comes in a roll, comes 72 inches long, 73. It'll come in a roll, and you'll need a certain amount of tools. So I got a list of tools to use. So you'll need a file, and we'll tell you about what all the tools are going to be for. You'll need a file, an 1/8 inch drill bit, a 1/4 inch battery operated impact driver, 5 small C-clamps, a tape measure, a marker, some rope or string to stretch across to help you support your material while you're working with it. And it'll come with 1/4 inch stainless self-tapping screws. And that should be all the material you'll need. So the first thing you'll want to do, like I said, is get this out of the package. You can get it set up where you're going to be working at. And then it comes with a list of stuff you want to do to get prepared and how to install the material. So then, like, number 2 is you want to make sure that you don't have anything. You want to remove all accessories. You don't want to have anything underneath the boat where the material is going to be. So obviously, I had to remove my lights and kind of have them out of the way, and I'll reinstall them later. And then your tow anchor for attaching on your trailer, you want to either move it forward, and that's what I did, is I had to move mine forward so it'll be outside of the VARA skin, because you don't want to cut a hole in it to be able to attach that. So I did move mine forward and reinforce it in there. So that'll be all the stuff you'll need to get started. All right, and so then on your list, number 3, under your boat measure, your center line. So you'll want to have your tape measure and find the center of your boat from the side of your pontoon to the side. And so this one is 60 inches. And so the center line is 30. And I've already went down through, and obviously I got mine's V-shaped right here, this center support. So obviously that's the center, but then all the way down to the back of the boat, all the way to where your motor transom is, and I've marked it at 30. And so every cross member, I went ahead and marked it, because you will end up putting 1 screw in the center of each on the center line. And then after that, number 4, you want to make sure that you don't have any sharp edges. So, I mean, if you're wearing gloves, after you're done, you might want to just check and make sure. After I've used a file, you can use a grinder with a sanding disc or something, whatever you want to use, but make sure there's no sharp edges where the material is going to attach to, even on the sides of the pontoons where they're attached to the cross members at. Okay, so after we've gotten all our tools and everything ready to go, we went ahead and we had our center line like we talked about, the material. We've zigzagged a support rope to help hold the material up so it's not laying on the ground. Every 2 to 3 spans down the length of the boat all the way to basically the transom. And we have attached it with 2 of the supplied screws on either side of center. And then we've worked all the way to the back to where, like I said, you got your ropes. And all the way to the back here, we have put it under tension. And you will have to figure out a system that works for you to be able to pull tension. So obviously you can use 2 2x4s. You're only going to put about 25 pounds per side. So 50 pounds, 60 max. That is the tension you're going to put on. So it doesn't have to be something that's significant. 2x4, 4x4, two ladders just sitting up against the back of the boat, give you something to tension with. We used ratchet straps. You can use rope, just to get the feel of how much tension you're putting on it. And you'll be able to tell when you're working with it. But what we did is we found the center line of the material also down in the back here, about 6 to 8 inches from the beginning of your transom. And we found the center line, we marked it, checked it on both sides to make sure we were folded in the middle. We put a fold in it, put a C-clamp, and then either, like I said, you could use a rope, you can use ratchet straps like we did, and pulled it hand tight on both sides. And I gave it, 3 or 4 clicks on both sides. Like I said, you got, about 25 pounds on each side. That gave us to where we're at right now with the tension all the way down the center line. And we are fixing to go through and screw on each cross member, a screw down the center line of each cross member. Okay, we're back on the install. What we were just previously at and showed you that we had it pegged here at the center line. We had it clamped dead center in the middle at the transom, had it pulled tight. And so then we've come back and screwed in down the center line. We made sure it was measured and had our center line, and it was marked already previously on the center on the boat itself, so you could see the marks through, since this stuff is clear and you could see all the way through, transparent. So it's screwed on every cross member. So we got the down the middle and we took the clamp loose, and then we came through, and what you want to do next is we have it screwed in on the sides. So you want to start first is you push the material close to the corner and measure the distance to the cross member and from out there to the screw. So this side was like 4 1/4, because you want to reference your web line, because that's where you want to pull at, is on the same web that the screw is going to be in. So that's what this black line's for. And so what we found out is we took a clamp when we did it on this side, and we had it on the same web. We just had it straight like that. We didn't fold it over. The clamp was on there, and when we were pulling on it, it ripped into it. So what we did on this side and that side too, luckily, and this is what you always want to do when you're pulling, is make sure you're on the outside of where it's going to be screwed on, so it's a cutoff, the extra pieces. So what you want to do is on the same web is fold it in half and fold it back again, so you at least have 4 layers, and it's on your web there. So then you'll take your clamp or whatever you're going to use and clamp it, so the clamp is right there on that same web that your screws are on, because that's where you want your tension to be, underneath where your screws are at. And so we did that on both sides and got it pulled tight. We actually pulled it, from our eyes on both sides, got it screwed in, 1 screw at the front on each side. You could do the first 2 if you want to. And then what we do is we come around to the back and basically do the same thing we did at the front, but then it'll put your tension from front all the way to the back. So we came around the back, and on the same web, like we're talking about, you want to have that same measurement. It'll be the same all the way through. So it's 4 1/4 on this side. So that's what my line is here. That's that 4 1/4 from the end to that web. We folded it and folded it again. So you got 4 layers, put the clamp on there, tight as you want it. It's going to be all your cutoffs. And then we, since we're using a ladder, and pulled our tension. And same thing as you did to the center, probably about 25 pounds. You'll kind of notice how the tightness of it. And then you can go through and go back up underneath. And what you want to do and make sure that you're doing, you want this stuff to be, pretty flat and flush all the way underneath. You don't want to have a bunch of ripples. So you can see how tight it is you'll take, you could use 1 guy, or 2 guys, but you want to have your drill and your screws and pushing, and you want to make sure this is flat, not have any like little waves, because it's not tight enough. And everybody's going to be different. Trying to get it tight if you're working by yourself or 2 people, but we were actually taking some little pieces of wood, whatever you want, and you can take and roll it into it and help push, or you can even use clamps, whatever you want to, and that helps pull it tight. And that's how you can kind of do it with one person if you wanted to, and screw it in, making sure that you're getting the little ripples out because you want it to be flat. And I mean, like my boat here, it has a couple little bolts that stick down, little carriage bolts holding a bracket on, so it's going to give you a little dimple there. But as you're working in, the metal here is below the cross member. So, but when you put your other screws in, I think it's going to pull it out and make sure it's all nice and flat. That way it doesn't have any give to it. So that's where we're at right now. We're about halfway. We're going to go through and screw it in at the front, probably 2 on each side now, down the middle, and that'll get all of this finished here, and then we'll end up working around the transom, and we'll get to showing you how that's kind of going to come together, getting that screwed in and getting it tight so it's like it is at the front. Okay, so from where we left off, we had it tightened up in the corners on the outside, and then we still had it pulled tight on the back corners with about 20-25 pounds on the same thread from front to back. And then we already had it down the middle, so then just like we were talking about, you stretched it, you know, starting on one side and kind of rolling it and getting it tight and getting your tight. So from the transom forward, you want to make sure that you got it, you know, tight, not loose. I mean, heck, I can only push this up maybe a 1/4 inch, half at the most. You don't want to be able to push it up, you know, any more than that, because then it'd obviously be loose. You can tell if this stuff is loose. So then the tricky part is every boat's different. So my boat, you know, this transom comes to this cross member, but some of the other ones come, you know, where it's half and half. So then this is going to be discretionary on, you know, the installer, what they want to use, because you need to be able to get this to where it's not flapping in the breeze. So you may want to get metal that goes from, you know, that's obviously not supplied, because you don't know what kind of boat you're, you know, dealing with. You can't supply everything. So, you know, either getting pieces, you know, aluminum that'll go between, and then like we used flat bar to go down the sides. One thing I did with mine, because these ears stick down, which most boats do, you don't want to have these sharp points with the fabric going on top of them. So I loosened these bolts up while it was all still loose back there, and I can get my hand in and wedged in there so I can get it tucked in between, and then put the bolts back in before obviously I stretched everything. So this is where the discretionary install comes at. You got to kind of figure out how you can get it to work for your boat to make sure it stays tight. But then, you know, once you kind of get it pegged here and it's still tight, then you can kind of work back. So if, like what we did, we had to loosen that back up on those corners so you can kind of get in between. But then, you know, tighten it all back up again, because your screws are going to hold it, you know, because obviously once you take everything loose, your screws are holding it all anyways. And then just kind of figure out what works for you. We have some flat bar in between the VARA skin and the transom, and it's screwed in, so it's kind of sandwiched. We folded it so it kind of it holds it tight, so that way air or wind or water's not getting, you know, right up in between and making it flap. So getting it as tight as you can and making sure you don't have loose material just kind of you know, out there. That's where it'd be good just, you know, having a flat bar on there that you'd have to go and buy, and Home Depot, Lowe's will carry most anything you need. If you need a big sheet, then that's where you might have to go to a metal supply house. But yeah, definitely making sure you keep this material tight and using your own discretion on the back install of the transom area, just because every boat is different. Okay, so this boat again is a 22-foot Sun Tracker party barge with a 115 Suzuki on it. So with this application, the time we probably got in it 2 guys. From the transom forward, we had about 4-5 hours on it, but your time is definitely going to be from the transom back, just because you have to figure out, you know, how you're gonna get it attached and how it's gonna stay tight. So like I said, you can see the flat bar here. So that is gonna be the most time consuming part for any install. So with that being said, like, you know, you can see how all our screws, we, you know, wanted it to look good, and I would think anybody would. You know, we popped a chalk line down there to make sure all our screws were, you know, in line. You know, got screws, you know, kind of tied up towards in the corners there. It's up to you if you want to flap it all the way down like I did, or, you know, leaving just an inch down. Every boat's going to be different. Everybody that installs it's going to do it a little bit different. But definitely take your time on this back half. The front goes pretty quick. It's just going to be head scratcher in this back area around the transom. Just trying to figure out how you can make sure that you get this material, you know, stretched and tight. Now, a couple things we ran into was from like the beginning of the transom to the back is it getting twisted a little bit. And so you'll get a few wrinkles. So you can see a little bit of wrinkle right there at the center by the transom. But that is due to just trying to get this fitted in there tight. You know, you may get it perfect, you may not, but you just got to do the best you can to get everything as tight as you can. You know, so you don't get wrinkles, because if it does get twisted a little bit, it'll leave a wrinkle line, and you'll be able to see it and just kind of work with it and see what you can do. I mean, this stuff doesn't really stretch, so it's not like you can just stretch it out. You're just going to have to, you know, maneuver it and get it screwed in just right. So yeah, all in all, it probably took about 10 hours total, just trying to figure out the back half and head scratching, maybe having to go and get a little bit of material. And along with like your transom, this boat, it's an O2. So, like transom bolts, some of your bolts may need to be a little bit rusted. The 2 bolts I did change out, cause they were rusted. You may just want to go through before you get to this part and just change the bolts out so they're new, just in, you know, while you're doing it. Cause you ain't getting to them now that the VARA skin's on without taking it all loose again. So those are kind of the things you, might run into, that you have to stop and go and get, because that was part of the 10 hours was having to go get a little material to get this the way that we wanted it. But all in all, I'm happy with it. And this boat right now, as it sits, it before the VARA skin, I was getting 20 to 21 miles an hour. So hoping to get, you know, 2 to 3 mile an hour out of it more. And so we'll just see.